he was the big winner.
All right. First and foremost, this was the sound that kind of took over everyone. Now, Barry spoke about this in the past, about him almost being a New York Yankee and him and then owner George Steinbrenner, kind of going back and forth. Yeah. I think it was on with Michael Kay and A-Rod a couple years ago. But I think a lot of people heard this for the first time and was like, wait, what?
When you came here, Barry, there was so much discussion of the Yankees being interested. Do you ever think back in a what-if sense? What if I was a Yankee? That short porch, you might have hit 1,000 home runs.
I got to tell you a story because George isn't here anymore, so I can tell the truth, right?
All right, George.
Right, he ain't here. Well, I would have been the Yankees, but Steinbrenner got on the phone and they called us and they told me, Barry, we're going to give you the money, the highest paid player at that time, but you have to sign the contract by 2 o'clock this afternoon. And I said, excuse me? And I just hung the phone up.
Wow.
And I went to go get lunch and Dennis Gilbert, my agent, and were like, what, do you know what you just did? I'm like, did you know what he just said? I just said, forget it. And I went to go by the time I walked down the street to go get lunch, I said, let me just think about this. The Giants called me and I said, I'm going home.
Yeah. I think that's going to get pushed around on social media a little bit, that story.
It's the truth. That's exactly what I was told.
Well,
pretty cool.
In classic,
sound courtesy of Netflix.
In classic Barry form, he loves to tell his own tall tales, which I love about him.
You think he was lying?
No, I don't think he was lying. Do you know, a lot of young fans don't know this. The Giants drafted him out of high school.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I did actually know that one. That one I did know.
Did you know why he didn't go to the Giants?
Why?
They offered him $70,000.
And he's like, no.
No, he wanted $75,000.
Oh. I guess the story that I heard was his dad told him to ask for more money and see what they do. So he asked for more money. They said no. And then it's like, all right, I'm going to college.
Yeah, his number was $75,000. They gave him 70. And he said, all right, I'm going. I don't want to go. So, none of that surprises me. Telling Barry what to do, that's not how he rolls.
Yeah.
Also, Mustache Barry at the time would have been a pretty funny look in the Yankee in the whole Yankee thing. I don't know how him and Don Mattingly would have coexisted.
Yeah.
It would have been a very bizarre thing. It all worked out perfectly fine. And plus, also, the Giants brought in his dad to be the hitting coach at the time. Bobby Bonds was the first base coach and hitting coach. So do I buy that story? Absolutely, I buy that story. Or is there more nuance and more details to it? 1,000%.
Well, and I brought up, Barry, and we're talking about Barry Bonds almost being a Yankee. I kind of like those woulda, coulda, shoulda things, how that would affect history. 888-957-9570 if you want to join the conversation from what you saw from yesterday's game, whether you're at it or watching the broadcast. But he talked about it a couple years ago with A-Rod and Michael Kay, because what do they call that? What cast?
K-Rod.
K-Rod cast, right? Well, there's only one K-Rod, but yeah. Anyways, but they talked about it, and he also said on that broadcast, hey, the Giants also offered way more money than the Yankees were going to offer. They blew it out of the water. He didn't mention that last night, but that's a part of the story that I think needs to be mentioned. The Giants blew George Steinbrenner's offer and the New York Yankees offer out of the water.
And you have to remember, okay, you have to remember, George was coming back from the suspension.
Yeah.
And
there's no scandal during that time with the Yankees, right?
They were not what they're viewed just a couple years later, where they won and we won a bunch of World Series. They had been in a real dry spell. And if you remember correctly, Dave Winfield and George Steinbrenner, who was the high-priced free agent, had just a 10-year spat in the 80s where they hated each other.
Yeah.
So you think Bonds was going to go play for him after Winfield and him had this big alienating argument? That being said, you also have to remember the Giants' point of view. In 92, the offseason prior, they had Saint Petersburg jerseys ready to go. They were going to move. I know everyone says Tampa Bay, but it was the Saint Petersburg Giants.
Yeah.
Was the jersey that I saw on the cover of the Chronicle. And when the Safeway group, which is McGowan, Larry Baer, all those guys, when they bought the Giants, part of their thing was, they had traded away Kevin Mitchell, which was a huge, huge deal. It's they knew they needed a splash.
Yeah.
And part of them anchoring back to the city and part of their pitch to build a stadium was they needed a star to sell to investors. Bonds was that local superstar sell. Bonds was in the playoffs 3 straight years against the Braves with the Pirates in the NLCS when baseball was one of the big sports of the game. Bonds was one of the big stars coming off of MVPs. Believe he had the MVP in 92, if memory serves. And so The Giants were all in on Barry Bonds. They brought in Dusty Baker. They got rid of Hum Baby. They didn't choose. No, they chose to sign Robbie Thompson because he was a little easier to extend. They didn't extend Will Clark. They were ushering in a whole new era, and it was all centered around Barry Bonds. I think, it's funny how history works itself out. We kind of pick and choose what elements to highlight and what to de-emphasize. The Giants were all in on Barry. And thankfully, he chose the Giants, and it ended up being a 15-year fruitful relationship.
And I'm also kind of realizing this now, too, just watching him on the broadcast, everything. Like, how is he not part of, the Giants, broadcast team? And maybe he doesn't want to do,
Can't pay him enough.
Well, he also probably doesn't want to do the grind. And Sam brought this up. He's like, I'd love him to be the future partner with Dave, whenever Kirk and Kipe decide, to leave. And I was like, Barry's just not going to want to do every single day. No. This setting is perfect for him in that it's national. He's a panelist. He could do some interviews with some of the big boys. If you want to bring him into the booth occasionally, that suits his mold, I think, a lot better. Kind of like what Alex Rodriguez has been doing for a long time with Fox and obviously with ESPN. 415 from the Box and Gerson work injury attorney's text line. That Barry story sounds like a future Aaron Judge story potentially. Now, I think Judge is going to be a lifer for the Yankees. I have a hard time. And never say never. Maybe in the last couple of years he goes somewhere else. Feels like he'll be a lifer there. Although yesterday, my God, he did not look very good.
It is so fascinating in baseball. You got two behemoths. I mean, Judge is way bigger, but Stanton and Judge are just huge.
They're large individuals. When you think Yankees, you think guys like that.
Yeah, and then you see Arise be a baller the way that he is, or Jazz Chisholm, who's a lot skinnier, even though he's bigger than he looks.
It's why it's so funny whenever those classic ALCS matchups with the Astros and Yankees. Who was the best pitcher? Altuve was the best guy in all those things, and he was half the size of Aaron Judge.
There was a shot from the 2017 ALCS of Judge and Altuve standing at second base together, and it's like those are the two best players in the American League right now, and they're just on opposite ends of the height spectrum.
Nate Fryman walked so Aaron Judge could run because Nate Fryman was the guy that stood next to Altuve first. He was 6'8".
Did you guys hear about what happened with all the height issues with Major League Baseball? So you know how this year they have which I have a problem with because when you get in the batter stance, some guys, even though they're taller, get in a real crouch situation.
They go super low.
So they're adjusting the strike zone to your actual real height. So everyone got real height measurements this year. And the amount of people that went down 2 or 3 inches in their size is incredible. Bregman, I knew he was 5'9". It's so obvious that Bregman was not 6'1". What? 6'1"?
No, I felt like I was always taller than him. Maybe with his fro when he grows it out.
So I learned this when Rafael Furcal was playing for the Dodgers.
That's a name I haven't heard in a minute.
You want one of the largest Popeye forearm guys you've ever seen in your life. Rafael Furcal, I was towering over him, and I was like, there's no chance in hell, Rafael. Google Rafael Furcal.
Well, apparently I shouldn't because something bad. Risotto got me here. Google him. He just got arrested recently.
He got arrested last year in Miami for throwing what was described in the police report as a missile.
Well,
okay.
Well,
he's listed at 5'8". There's not a chance in hell that guy's even 5'7". He is so short, and his arms were huge. And I realized, these guys are all lying.
Former Major League shortstop Rafael Furcal is facing felony charges in South Florida. The former All-Star turned himself into the Broward County. He's charged with aggravated battery with a deadly weapon and throwing a missile into public or private dwelling.
What the hell?
I don't know.
What are we talking about?
Here's more for Barry Bonds on the broadcast. By the way, this is very interesting from the 408. Bonds to the Yankees wouldn't have changed much. He still would be the player hitter he turned out to be. I just think he'd actually be a Hall of Famer as of right now.
Oh, there's not a doubt in my mind.
Because they like you more if you're a Yankee or some other team like the Dodgers. But how's that working out for Alex Rodriguez? He was a Yankee, right?
Alex Rodriguez served the largest suspension in the history of baseball.
I know.
No, Joe. He missed an entire year and is the face of baseball on multiple television platforms.
He should be in. I'm in agreement with you. But he was a Yankee, and that didn't help him. His case,
Bonds has had to scrape and claw to even get to this point, and he has been retired significantly longer than A-Rod.
But do you agree though
Andy Pettitte? One second. Andy Pettitte is the face of WBC coaching staff.
Again, you still think though that if Bonds was a Yankee, he would be in the Hall of Fame? Because I don't know. Those guys
Clemens was a Yankee, and he's not in.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
And Gary Sheffield was a Yankee, and he's not in.
Should be.
And I agree. All of them should be. Look, we got to appropriate the blame here on why he's not in. Like, it's the baseball writers. And they can point the finger at who they want. They pick and choose who they like. David Ortiz was in the Mitchell report. He failed multiple tests. We know this is a fact. This is not speculation. This is fact. He's in the Hall of Fame. We like him. Yeah. We don't like Bonds, or before people don't like Bonds. So, I mean, like, I just wish we would come out and say it.
Well, eventually, guys like Steven Risotto on the back will, he'll get his Hall of Fame vote, and he'll get him on the special committee, however they do that again.
Thurman Munson should be in. He's a Yankee.
Yeah.
Right? Now, are the Yankees proportionately... Are they in the Hall of Fame at a proportionate rate? Probably, because they have 30 freaking World Series or whatever, 28 World Series. Okay, so like they probably do deserve to have so many names in there. They're one of the oldest teams. I get all that. But this thing that like, if he was a Yankee, he'd already be in, I don't know, maybe. Do I believe, though, that like more Yankees get in? Yeah, I do. Yeah. Just like more Cowboys and Steelers and, those type of guys get into the Hall of Fame in their sport.
We are brought to you by Frown Bank, here for you, here for good. And by the way, Bay FC's Hello Kitty match is back. By popular demand, Bay FC takes on Washington Spirit on Sunday, April 5th at PayPal Park. Don't miss exclusive Hello Kitty themed merch activities and more on Easter Sunday for your chance to win a pair of tickets to the game. Keep it locked to our show today and tomorrow. And be ready after the injury report at around 8 a.m. to call in after you hear this sounder.
Who wants to go to a soccer game?
And for more info, visit 95southerngame.com. One more from Barry, talking about the guy that they wanted him to talk about all broadcast long, Aaron Judge.
Let's go back to the word team. We always talk about team, but all of a sudden we're talking about one individual that plays on a team that also wears a C on his shirt as captain of that team, and we're missing how much he brings to that team and he puts them in the position that they're in. If you want to talk about teams, that's the man I want on my team. Yep. If you want to talk about character, that's the man I want on my team. And we all are responsible for our own jobs. And I'll go back to myself with all the criticisms that I've been through. On that field, like I say, I may not have talked to anybody off the field. That was just me, all right? But on that field, I was probably the best teammate you would ever have. I took more walks for my team, got on base for my team, and that's what baseball's about. And Aaron Judge brings that to his team every day, year in and year out.
I thought that was fascinating, the compare and contrast with him and Aaron Judge, and kind of bringing it back to himself and how he's viewed, as we're kind of talking about this Hall of Fame conversation a little bit too with Barry, because how could you not? Just how he was viewed as a teammate. Everyone would say he was a bad teammate. That is whether we feel that's true or not, Joe.
Who has ever come out and said he's a bad teammate?
Well, a lot of people think that he was a prick to his teammates in the locker room
Jason
and whatever.
Christensen?
I'm just saying Joe, you don't think that is what people think about Barry Bonds, that he was a bad teammate? A lot of people say that.
But what player has come out? I'm asking you. I love hearing this because it's ridiculous. What player has ever said he was a bad teammate?
Saying there's a narrative out there.
And it's
whether
fake.
That's okay. We're just having the conversation. I'm not saying that.
What did Jeff Kent say about Barry? They may not have liked him, but he never said he was a bad teammate.
Yeah, because he does.
Has Rich Aurelia ever said that Bonds is a bad teammate?
No.
Has Matt Williams ever said Bonds was a bad teammate?
No, not publicly.
All these guys have had opportunities to take knocks on him over the last 20 years when he's at his lowest, and none of them. Now, is he a good friend? Greg Anderson on line one, that's a different conversation. But Kirk Reeder, Jeff Kent, Rich Aurelia, JT Snow, these guys swear by him.
Yeah.
So, I love hearing this.
There's also a famous video of him getting chewed out by Jim Leland when he's a Pittsburgh Pirate. We'll go to his Pirates days.
He was 21 years old.
Okay. But he was also kind of that guy for his whole career,
too. Have you ever heard Andy Van Slyke say anything about him? No. How about Bobby Bonilla? How about Jose Lynn?
There's a whole video on YouTube.
Well, because the manager and him didn't get along?
Again, Joe, I'm not saying he's a bad teammate. That is a narrative surrounding him that people go to.
It's an awful stereotype that doesn't really hit home. I don't think it's a fair one. I mean, I really don't. I think it's a ridiculous one. Treating the media again.
I agree with that aspect.
The whole media has admitted this. Treating the media one way does not equate to how you treat your teammates and how they view. Now, that being said, is he best friends with everyone? No. I also don't think Steph Curry's best friends with everyone on the team. And I think he's a great teammate. There's many different ways to be on a team and in a working environment. The older I get, the more I actually appreciate hey, this is work. I show up. I don't have to be best friends with everyone. I have a complicated life. I want to walk away from this.
Right.
Joe, you say this is the narrative. And my pushback is always, show me the guy outside of J.C. Christensen who's like, dude was a straight up jerk. No one's ever said it. And in the era of athlete podcasts everywhere, I've never heard that. Am I wrong?
Risotto, you got something.
So actually there is an instance earlier this year, and I guess in 2023, Barry Bonds went on a podcast and said they were talking about tipping pitches, and Bonds would see his own team tipping pitches, and Rob Nen specifically, and he would not tell Rob Nen. And the quote that he said was,
I might face him later.
He basically said, I'll give you general conversation, help you, and then this is a business, so I have to protect my business. And then earlier this year, FP Santangelo on his podcast, the Splash Hit Territory, kind of echoed that statement, and JT Snow responded, and Santangelo was basically saying how Bonds knew all of Nen's pitches and didn't tell him. And JT Snow responded and said, this was the tweet from JT Snow that he later deleted. So that tells you something. He said, what a teammate. Thought we were trying to win baseball games every day. Most BS Bush League thing I ever experienced in Major League Baseball.
There is an example. That is the first time.
Yeah. He deleted it, though. So maybe he's having a little excitement.
We do this thing. It's so funny. I'm gonna go through the room here. What is Bonds most known for in the locker room? By every beat writer. What is it?
Having his own wing with a recliner.
Okay.
The chair. The chair.
Do you guys know? Trent Williams has 2 lockers in the 49ers locker room.
It's a Hall of Famer right there.
Did you know that? He also has an extra area for just his shoes. Did you know that?
Well, guys get treated different. We all know that.
What? No way.
Yeah.
No way.
You don't even want Trent Williams back.
I'm just saying. But has that been reported? You know why? Because Trent Williams is like, anytime you want to talk to me, come talk to me.
Well, yeah, because he has a great relationship with the media. Guys like Cam Inman that come on here speak glowingly about him.
I agree with you.
Shask, you know how many Giants players have multiple lockers?
I don't know.
At least I would say 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, but in the era that Bonds was in, I don't think it was as prevalent as it is currently.
Yeah, but no, I'm in there last night, and I'm pretty sure Jung-Hoo Lee's got an extra locker next to him. There's an extra locker next to Rafi Devers. Willie and Chapman have extra lockers that are open that are next to him. I think Pat Bailey's got an extra locker. I mean, some of these could just be open lockers, but there's a lot of guys in this clubhouse who their stuff spills into a second locker.
Yeah, okay, now look, the recliner is probably a little much in that era, but if the Warriors gave preferential treatment to Steph Curry regarding the recliner chair, would anyone bat an eye? Preferential treatment. We're asking Steph Curry which of these bum draft picks you want to get rid of. I mean, what are we talking about? Player empowerment's through the roof. Now here's where I would draw the line. If Gerard Encarnacion has 3 lockers and a recliner, that's where I'm drawing the line.
Well, he might need it. He's on the injury report all the time, so he might need some extra assistance.
Joe, kid. When was the last time Draymond Green spoke to reporters? We asked this question to Nick Friedel the other day. It's been months.
Yeah.
Months.
Well, he has his own book because he has his own podcast. He wants to reveal the information by himself, which is fine. That's his prerogative. He could do that.
There is no modern athlete in what they're doing without the evolution. And these guys, in their era, they were rule breakers.
Yeah.
The T.O.s, the Ocho Cincos, the Barry Bondses, the Gary Sheffields. Those guys are the evolutionary part of where the modern athlete is currently, where they want to control their own narratives.
510. Maybe if Bonds goes to the Yankees, he does make the Hall of Fame because then he never meets the Balco people and never juices up. That's UPS Zach.
A-Rod and Roger were on juice.
Everyone was.
Remember, guys, there's only steroids in California.
No, I was going to say, it's only a West Coast problem. It's not an East Coast thing. It's Biggie and Tupac, guys. There you go. Just ridiculous.
But you can understand where I get frustrated.
I understand. No, that's your guy. I love Barry.
One of my favorite players of all time.
Joe, I didn't grow up a Giants fan, and Barry Bonds is my favorite baseball player of all time. Yes.
You know who's an eccentric whack job? Ricky Henderson.
Absolutely.
And it's part of the lore of what makes him him.
Well, every time you go third person.
I had I remember this teammate in another spot I had who wore a helmet like that. Yeah, Ricky, it was me. Sean Olerud, who's me. But yet we laugh at that because Ricky's Ricky, and yet Bonds, gets vilified. I'm not here to say that he was a choir boy.
Yeah.
He obviously wasn't. I'm not even here to say that he didn't cheat. He did cheat. I freely acknowledge it. But we act like this dude was the worst human being who ever lived.
What I appreciated about that, too, because Barry was... There is actually a lot of similarities with Bonds and Judge in that their postseason success has really not been there. And, they have a lot of low moments in the postseason. And Barry's like, hold up. You're not even getting to this position without me. Like, you're not even reaching this height without what I was able to do in the regular season and leading up to that.
Yeah.
So, like...
He was the franchise.
I am a good teammate in that I'm helping all of you on a given day, getting all these intentional walks, putting guys in positions to succeed. I'm doing all that. And I got his back in that regard because I don't think that's talked about enough when it comes to players' shortcomings in the playoffs, all the work that led up to getting to that point.
Joe, the way that the modern Bay Area sports fan feels about Steph Curry was how we felt about Barry Bonds with scandal. I will admit, with scandal. There is no San Francisco Giants in the heart of downtown San Francisco without Barry Bonds. Yeah. They probably move. There is no giant investment into a stadium that is the greatest civic partnership with a sports team, maybe in the entire North America, territory.
Yeah.
Which is AT&T Park, now Oracle.
Yep.
How many different guys made millions of dollars because of the impact Barry had on sports and baseball and just the blow up of these contracts?
It's can't be understated how much what you're saying is true.
Okay. Launch era, meaning launch angle era. Everyone's looking, hey, why do I want to make a lot of money? If I hit a lot of home runs, I'm going to make a lot of money. All right. How many players on that team feasted off of second, third, fourth contracts, batting somewhere in the lineup with him?
Jeff Kent on line one.
All right.
Who was an MVP and a Hall of Famer in his own right that benefited a lot from Barry Bonds.
Does Dusty become Dusty if he doesn't manage Barry Bonds? I don't know. Maybe he does.
Maybe.
But it sure helped.
It really helped.
It sure helped.
971 on the Boxer and Gerson work injury attorneys text line. Griffey had a recliner too. People forget that Bonds was always guarded / spiteful toward the media because of the way his dad was treated.
His dad was traded 6 times.
We know this locally. It's not.
This is like going real deep here. His dad is one of my favorite. My dad's favorite woulda, coulda, shouldas. He said it all the time. My dad believed, and a lot of people believed in the 60s, Bobby Bonds was as talented as Willie Mays. I know it sounds insane. But people of that time thought Bobby was as talented as Willie. Okay?
Yeah.
They did. They truly did. He could run. He could hit. He could hit for power. He was an elite defensive player. Like, you got to talk to people of that particular era.
Yep.
And there were people that talked about his father's alcoholism, and it got out to the media that he had these personal issues, and it soured how teams felt about him and how fans felt about him. And Barry grew up with that knowledge, and it jaded him. And that's real. That's a character flaw. There's no other way around it. And I think that Willie himself went through, and I don't know if you guys watched the Willie doc. Willie admitted that he couldn't understand why he wasn't beloved like Jackie Robinson. He couldn't get over it. Yeah. He couldn't understand why the San Francisco fan didn't embrace him the way they embraced Willie McCovey at the time, right? So he learned from his godfather. He learned from his father. And that really seeped in to what made him him.
Barry Bonds, as we're talking about all this, I felt was the big winner last night for Netflix. And, maybe this is the start. And not that I think his entire image need total rehabilitation, because he has been doing a lot of podcasts recently. He's been out more in the public eye. I think that is good for him. And I don't know if he cares at this point whether or not he gets into the Hall of Fame.
He cares. I think that's B. I think he cares.
But we, the fans, care. At the end of the day, I can't speak for how he does internalizing it. I know you and I care whether or not he gets in. But I do think it's interesting. The mythology around him is kind of greater because he's not in there. He is the greatest baseball player that I've ever seen.
He's the greatest living baseball player in my mind.
Yes.
And we could argue about he was the greatest show of all time.
Do you think Pete Rose not getting into the Hall of Fame added more to his legacy? Like, in a way that we talked about him way more than if he had just gotten in on a first ballot thing.
Maybe.
I think it's...
He was just so controversial.
I just know how we are in the media. It's always a thing.
No, that's a
Every
good point.
single
That's a good
year,
point.
his name is constantly brought up. So,
But with A-Rod, people will disagree. I know he did roids. I think A-Rod's the greatest shortstop
he
of all
is.
time.
The aforementioned Pete Rose agrees with you.
That's my personal belief. I think range, arm, at-bats, his ability to hit for power. Like, he's one of the greatest players in the game. He's like, in my life, he's like 3 or 4 in terms of greatest player. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We'll see with Shohei where he ends up when it's all said and done, because he's getting there.
Yeah.
The guy's amazing.
Micah Parsons.
I'm talking about guys I watched. You know what I mean? Pujols is up there. For me.
Oh, yeah.
Miguel Cabrera.
It was crazy. Those two
Pedro,
guys sitting on the panel
Roger,
together. Yeah.
Like these are all these guys. I don't, it's tough for me when it comes to the pitchers versus position players.
Yeah.
Like, it's just tough. Like, because Roger was amazing.
Verlander, Kershaw, yeah.
Look, you don't win 6, 7 Cy Youngs without being one of the greatest players of all time.
Not in the Hall of Fame.
It's just wild. But, like, there is an element of the scandal made those guys so big in terms of, like, the TMZ-ification of it all. Yeah, I do think that puts more on them. Absolutely.
I would more Barry Bonds on broadcast and baseball, I think, is a good thing. And there is a little bit of, I understand the cynicism of fans saying, oh, wow, Major League Baseball, Netflix, this big thing. You have the cojones to put Barry Bonds in front of our faces and tout him and pay him and do all this stuff. And yet you want to ban him from the Hall of Fame.
Joe.
And I understand it's a beat writer thing and it's different than that, but I understand where Giants fans feel some type of way about that.
I want people to understand this. It's as close to Peyton Manning and what his family means to football was at the time what the Griffeys and the Bonds meant to baseball.
Yeah.
Okay? And Bonds having his godfather be Willie, okay, and to him be that good, and his father be such a good ball player who didn't reach his full potential, like, it's the close equivalent to what the Mannings mean to football.
Yeah.
All right? And, I mean, just between Bobby, Willie, and Barry, think of how many, like, we're talking like, 1,500 home runs?
It's incredible.
1,600 home runs?
It's insane.
And I think and the reason why I say Peyton Manning, I think this is important. When I think of football and Peyton Manning, it's the brains, the IQ, the amount of football IQ him and Eli had, even though they would throw picks and stuff like that, like they live, eat, breathe the game. Barry lived, eat, and breathed the game and still does. Yep. I know he does. He's one of the smartest players ever. And what bugs me more than anything is that we diminish all of his IQ of the game and how much he knows about baseball because of the cheating stuff. And it tarnishes the whole thing for me, and it bugs me, because when I think of the geniuses of that sport, like the way LeBron is, his IQ, or Draymond's IQ in basketball, or Steph's IQ in basketball is a part of what makes them great.
Yeah.
That was Barry. He knew what pitch you were going to throw in what circumstance, in what situation, and
tendencies, all of that. Yeah.
And so you ask, like, does he care about? No, he does care, because he loves the history of the game.
Yeah.
He knows the history. He grew up in the history of the game in the same way Peyton grew up in the history of the game. And so I do think it really bugs him. I do.
Was it last year or the year before, the Rickwood game, when it was him and Ken Griffey Jr. on the panel when they played down there in the Birmingham, Alabama, and they asked him, he's like, yeah, who would win in a battle between you and Satchel Paige? He's like, me and Satchel Paige? Gone. That's all he said.
Yeah, it's great.
He's like, I'm not going to be humble like Ken Griffey Jr. is being humble over here. He's like, no, I'm taking him yard, dude.
And look, am I biased? Yeah, I am biased. I'm 43 years old. My favorite player of all time is Barry Bonds. Yeah. He grew up in the Peninsula. His dad played for the Giants, who was one of my dad's favorite players. His godfather is my father's favorite player.
Yeah.
He went to Sarah High School in the WCAL and played against my uncle. All right? I heard about the legend of Barry Bonds when I was a child from my dad and my uncle because of what he did at West Sunset Field playing for the Sarah Padres. Right. He played basketball and was a point guard. And I heard he was a better basketball player at the time than he was a baseball player. He got drafted by the Pirates, and when not a lot of baseball was on TV, that team was on every playoff game in 91, 92, and 1990, and I was rooting for them to win it all. He had swag and appeal with the little gold cross and the Nike shoes with the high tops and was hitting yaks. And I rooted for him. And then he signed with my team that was going to move away, and he was my favorite player in baseball by far. And he signed with my local team to come back home. And his dad and Dusty Baker were the seminal characters outside of the 89 team that made me forge my love of baseball at 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. And then he went on to have, at that time, the most successful run that the Giants had ever had in terms of playoff appearances. And he had one of the most historic runs the game has ever seen as a prolific home run hitter. And yeah, he cheated. And he was my favorite player. And I know he cheated, and it sucks, and I hate it. And other guys cheated as well. That doesn't make what he did right. But
no, it just evens the playing field.
He's my favorite player of all time who helped keep my favorite team in this park, which built the best ballpark, hands down, maybe in North America, that is in my backyard. And I wear that team proudly. It was my dad's favorite sport, and he was the godson of my dad's favorite player, and he was my favorite player. So I'm always going to go to bat for Barry Bonds, and warts and all. And part of what makes him so endearing for me is that he is flawed. You know, Curry's almost too good to be true.
It is.
He's almost too good to be true. He's almost too perfect, you know? And there is something, I gravitate toward people that have a little more flaws because I'm flawed.
Absolutely.
So I love Barry, and I'm always going to defend him.